What do you mean it is rated M? I have worked for GameStop 2 times in my life. The most recent being in 2017. I was an SGA, Senior Guest Advisor, and that position means you are on the management team, one rung below the assistant manager. I was hired on during a crisis of sorts. Almost the whole team quit, leaving only my manager and one other coworker who was also an SGA. So that made 3 of us working there for the next 6 months. So as an SGA, if you are working the store alone, then you are the manager. I can't tell you how giddy that made me when my manager told me that. One day this, I want to say middle-aged mom, came in with her son and started looking around. I finished up replying to an email and gave the whole "Welcome to GameStop, can I help you?" spiel.
Yes, actually. My son is looking for a game called GTA 5. It's his birthday and I want to get him something he's been asking for.
Okay, that's very nice of you. How old is your son, if I may ask?
Oh, he's 10 years old.
Okay, well, seeing that GTA 5 is rated M for mature, I have to inform you that it has a lot of violence, and that game specifically has a portion of the story that requires that you visit a strip club.
That can't be true. My son told me it was rated T.
I can show you the game case since it has the rating on it, ma'am.
Are you saying my son is a liar?
By this point I look at the kid and he looks at me and is shaking his head, begging me not to say anything else. I shiver thinking about what that mom does to that kid.
I want to speak with your manager.
As soon as I hear this, I feel my heart quicken and I remember a post from Tumblr that I always wanted to try out. I said, "Of course, ma'am. He is in the back, let me go get him." I went to the back and grabbed a game case just for good measure and came back out. She looked visibly confused, and before she could say anything I say in the thickest British accent I can muster and said, "You said you wanted to speak to the manager? Also, here is the game you were looking for. As you can see, it is rated M." Her mouth went wide and her face went red. She yelled something about reporting me to the mall for something or another and then snatched her kid by the arm and left the store screaming about how she couldn't believe how rude I was to her. She never came back, my manager never found out. I will never not tell this story at a party. When an Uber driver refuses to return your stuff. First of all, I understand leaving something behind in an Uber is a pain in the ass for the driver. Uber has recently added a $15 fee for a driver returning an item, which I completely support, and in the past, I've given a driver a $20 tip for returning my item. Now to my story. Late Friday night I left both my phone and wallet in an Uber on my way home from a party. I thought they might have been left at the party, so I waited until Saturday morning to check before reaching out to the Uber driver. My phone is off, so no luck with Find My iPhone, which is strange because I went out with a full charge. My friend is unable to find it at his place, so I reach out to the driver. I try him a few times throughout the day and I either get his voicemail or he answers and immediately hangs up. I understand they work weird hours, so no alarms yet. Finally, I get through and he confirms he has the phone, but says he can't meet today. When I ask when he can meet, he starts to pretend he can't hear me and just says hello. Hello? Before hanging up. I try him the rest of Saturday and Sunday, getting the same voicemail/hang up runaround. I reach out to Uber, who reaches out to him directly asking about my items. Monday morning Uber tells me he doesn't have them, and despite me telling them that he confirmed that he did on Saturday, they were about as helpful as you'd expect. I get a hold of the driver Monday afternoon after repeated attempts, which is only the second time I've ever spoken to him at this point. His story is now that he doesn't have them, and when I say I'm going to get the cops involved, he hesitates for a second but then doubles down and says he can prove he doesn't have them. I filed a police report and then, as a last-ditch effort, decide to take the number I got from his answering machine. Uber connects you via phone rather than giving you their number, and text him, offering $200 for my items returned, no questions asked. Well guys, as luck would have it, he found my phone and wallet. My offer must have made them magically appear out of thin air. I grab $200 from the bank and we arrange a meeting time, which he repeatedly moves. I'm having to do this all without a phone, so shout out to my lovely wife for coordinating this all. He's apparently very excited during this call, and is asking how his reward will be paid. I wait in the rain for an hour for this guy, in a sea of downtown Chicago Ubers. Finally I spot his car, confirm it's him, and jump into the front seat. I pull out the money and ask to see my stuff, which he pulls out of his center console and places near me. I start counting out the money on my lap, and once I reach $200 I pick it up, take my wallet and phone and say here you go. Without actually handing it to him. I book it out the car and don't look back. I go the opposite way he's facing so that he can't follow me, and make my way to a pedestrian-only courtyard. Surprise, surprise, my phone is turned off with plenty of battery left, which means he turned it off so I couldn't find it. I feel for Uber drivers who have to deal with customers leaving stuff behind, but I would have happily have worked with him to make it as convenient as possible to return my things. Refusing to coordinate and then lying about having things that you find is theft, and it felt great to pull a fast one on this asshole. Annoying the head of the HOA. A friend of mine not too long ago painted his house. He lives in a development that has an HOA. He admits that he and his wife made the first mistake by not reading the HOA handbook close enough, so they didn't realize they had to get the color approved by the HOA. On the first day of painting, the head of the HOA stopped by and talked to them, made small talk, talked about ways to make painting the house easier, etc. At this time the HOA head knew they hadn't gotten the color approved because he sits on the 3-person panel that approves the colors. However, he opted not to say anything to them. Instead, he waited until they had the entire house painted, then told them the color was not approved, because there are too many other houses with a similar color. It was a lighter shade of green. So, faced with having to spend the time and money to repaint the entire house, he and his wife decided to get a little revenge. They submitted the form and color swatch for the new color and were approved. Knowing the panel had to take time out of their lives to meet every time they submit a color, they decided to submit another color swatch and form saying that they had changed their minds. This color was one they knew would never be approved. As assumed, it was denied. They had to submit again, and again they submitted a color they knew would never be approved. Again, they were denied. They repeated this 4 or 5 times before the HOA head contacted them and told them the first swatch they submitted was still approved and not to submit another swatch for approval. They were tired of playing games. He replied telling him that it turns out that color is no longer available and they needed to submit one last swatch, which, of course, was a color that they knew would not be approved. This time the HOA told them if they submitted another unapprovable swatch they would be fined and billed for the panel's time. He submitted another swatch that was a color he knew would never be approved, and with it a photocopy of the page from the handbook covering the process of getting a color approved. He pointed out that there was nothing in there that mentioned any limit to a number of swatches a person could submit. This entire process took a few months. After 8 or 9 swatches that were denied, the head of the HOA was fuming mad, and showed up at their door telling them he wasn't leaving until they had decided on a color for the house. My friend pointed out that the handbook says the only way for a color to be approved was with a vote from the full panel. The HOA head called the other 2 people, they came over, and once they were all sat down he and his wife shuffled through about 10 different swatches of crazy colors before finally showing them one that was a light green color. Frustrated, they approved it and left. A few weeks later, the head of the HOA contacted him to see when they were going to paint, and he told them they already had. The swatch that they had approved was the color the house was already painted. A week later he got an angry letter from the HOA and a bill for their time. He refused to pay and will fight it. A couple weeks after that everyone got a revised handbook in the mail with very detailed rules on how to get a color approved. My friend then called the head of the HOA, and told him all of this could have been avoided if he had just said something that day, when he came over and talked to them as they started painting, but he decided to be a dick, so they decided to be dicks back to him.